All right. This is not the norm at all. I hope it does become the new norm, actually, because um, I think I was gonna have a dev on the Answer the Call podcast like a while back, and they were like, kind of like, yeah, we're not really doing that, and I was like, okay, cool. But Yogi Klatt showed up on Space Tomatoes podcast with Avenger One, which makes it even crazier because Avenger One was, I think, pretty damn critical of them. So normally you wouldn't expect them to want to put themselves in a situation like that because most of their video content or conversational content is very curated by Jared, very much owned by Jared. I'd be very curious to know like how the podcast came about. I'll DM Space Tomato, not because I necessarily want any developers on, but I feel like I would, and the reason why I don't want any developers on before we move into anything else is I feel like my community expects me to be the based person or to be a dick for whatever reason, when in reality I wouldn't want to be at all. I would want to have them feel comfortable and talk about what they do and whatever, right? So I think it would be a lose-lose for me no matter what, because I wouldn't ask the question that maybe the community thinks they need to be asked, which is like, why is Star Citizen a scam or something? Which, yeah, like I don't know how it would be good for me. But anyway, super long intro. What we did was my Discord helped break it down into clips that were interesting and useful because it's a 2-hour podcast. We just did a podcast on the Answer the Call channel with Avenger, so I imagine a lot of the conversations would be the same. But now, instead of people who don't know what they're talking about respond to the questions or the issues, we have the person who does, and that's Yogi Klatt, who makes the flight stuff and leads the flight team as far as I'm aware. So the title was The Future of Combat in Star Citizen, featuring Yogi Klatt and Avenger 1. The title of the first clip is Star Citizen a PvP game? Okay. Is Star Citizen a PvP game is the first clip. Here we go.
I agree with that, right? That's that's true, right? But the other changes we did were they were still better for the overall game. So we do hope that we can focus a little bit more or tweak the game a little bit more so that it allows more PvP in the future or has more interesting depth, right? But we won't get there in 3.2.3. So yeah, later in the game, I mean, which Tyra said this as in the thread in Spectrum where I was. I mean, in this one ISC, I said, "Oh, it's a great space combat game." It was like, "Oh, it's not a space combat game. Star Citizen is more." Yes, I agree. So Tara's mentioned that there will be areas which are more PvE and PvP dominated. So PvP will definitely be and stay a part of Star Citizen. I think at the moment it's more like, what do we do first, right? And at the moment we have so much data to update. It's like I cannot at the moment I cannot even say when we're considered PvP like fully PvP ready. And there's actually a couple of things.
Oh wow! I cannot even consider when PvP would be like actually PvP ready. That is so. I accept that as an answer from Yogi, knowing what we know today, but it is so hard as an original backer to accept that as a response. But Yogi wasn't there in the beginning. Maybe if he was, maybe if all the people that are working there now making the decisions that they made today, if they made them in 2012, we wouldn't be in the situation that we're in today. But we're in the situation that we're in today because of the decisions that were made in the past. And that is that's tough. So, because for people who might have like backed the game in, let's say, like 2017, 2018, 2019, and beyond, Arena Commander was always supposed to be the decider of how flight period would work, which was probably never a good idea because the distances changed or whatever. I saw a thread recently about the FPS combat. It was just a comment actually, and it was very idiotic from honestly a notorious dummy that I've seen plenty of times, but it doesn't matter. It was, I watched the entire ISC. Who are these people making this game for? They're not making it for me as an original backer. Well, he must have brain fog, because the original game was way less in depth, way less open, and all of these things that are being made, they're definitely not making it for the original backer, but they haven't been making it for the original backer since 2016, since 2015, right? The game has been way more open, way more seamless. It's changed completely. So the solutions to the problems that are created are the problems that are being created are because of the scale of the game, the way they've made the planets and all these things. There's a lot of weird solutions that have had to happen because of that stuff. So of course they're not making the game for the original backer. And if you've lasted this long, you must be blind to not notice that the game is nothing like the original pitch whatsoever. The original pitch was Freelancer Next. Obviously it's feature creep, but yeah, the original pitch was Freelancer Next. So yeah, this is interesting though. I don't really know when to stop the clips, but so we might bleed into other ones.
That we would probably do different. If Star Citizen would be a pure PvP game, we would probably not have gimbals or something like that. There's a couple of things where we would need to be very careful how we lay out and balance ships.
Wow.
For example, we have our ships like light fighters. They have vastly different gun options, right? Some have I don't know, 3 size 3 laser repeaters. Other have 2 size 1, 4 size 4, or 4.
I'm looking at Avengers breathing. I don't know why, but I feel like he's holding back.
Size 1 or whatever, right? These gun loadouts, they were not necessarily created from a balance point of view, but also from an artistic direction that we wanted this ship to achieve, right? But at the same time, this can be very hard to balance, right? But there's often multiple requirements coming in why we need this or that ship, and not all of them are coined towards it needs to work perfectly for PvP. I mean, we're trying to do as best as we can to tune it in a way so that it feels balanced, but it's not the overarching goal to make a perfect PvP game. Star Citizen is a PvE game that allows PvP, not vice versa.
That's probably where you end the clip. Star Citizen is a PvE game that allows PvP, not vice versa. And then this is the face of every PvPer that has been playing the game for all these years. Avengers not in shambles, a lot of people are, right? Most of us, I think, knew that this is sort of what was going to happen. But yeah, it's and I think they did too. But it sucks to hear from those guys. But I've always and I don't think Yogi ever said that it would be because here's the deal. What has happened in the past is PvPers have held on to certain statements or certain things that CIG have said to say that Star Citizen is a PvP game. Get used to it, right? A lot of people have said stuff like that, and have used a few CIG comments to form their arguments about Star Citizen, saying Star Citizen is a PvP game. You casuals need to get used to this stuff. And that was never, and that honestly, that was a lot of the kickback towards Avengers comments of you need to train to get good and stuff like that. Well, what Avenger, I think, and I think we addressed it on our podcast, what Avenger was saying is you need to train to get to the top, right? And that will be the same no matter what game you play, if it's a good game. And they don't really feel like that's the case. If you guys are going Avenger 1 later rebuttals, I hope those are in the clips that are there. So just please yeah, let me know. So thank you, Moldan. Let me know if I'm addressing clips that will be addressed later that you guys, because you guys put them in there, right? Just watch the whole thing. Will be the most ridiculous react at all. So if you have the later A1 rebuttal, please let me know, okay? If it's in there already, let me know, and if it's not, let me know, because I would love to go to that next. You know, grab it if you got it. But I think a lot of people thought that Star Citizen was, you know, hey, space be dangerous, right? And I think in a lot of ways it is. But yeah, it's gonna be crazy. Burke, thank you so much for the raid. We just got a big raid from Burke Black. So we are going over a podcast about Star Citizen Combat with the guy in the middle is the CIG dev. So this is like some deep stuff. So yeah, for people who are coming in here who don't know Star Citizen that well, I'm gonna apologize right away. We're going into some deep stuff, but you're all pirates, so this stuff kind of matters. But yeah, so originally everybody was saying, you know, Star Citizen is exclusively a PvP game, and I think everybody knows that if Star Citizen was dangerous everywhere you went, including landing zones, people were going to quit the game, right? People were going to quit the game. Period. It was never going to survive, right? Many games like that don't, especially with the audience that backs Star Citizen, right? So I don't know if it's a PvE game first. I think it's kind of what you choose first. But I think in terms of their development and what they're focusing on, I think they want the PvE experience to be as good as possible first. I think it benefits them for Squadron, and I think it benefits them for you know, maintaining a player base in their game, I think. So he just answered it. 5-star. Again, we have a bunch of clips. We're going through them. I'm going to share my comments. That's the point of reacting to something. You know, if we're just gonna watch, then that makes no sense. But the game was always going to not be PvE, but was going to have places of safety. Was gonna have, you know, the ability to do some things that are where you didn't have to always look over your shoulder, right? Something like that. I don't know.
Why the fuck are the car keys in the bed?
Why are the...
I'm sorry, YouTube, but why are the car keys... YouTube, can you explain to me? Hi, YouTube. Why my car keys are in the bed?
I think they were in my pocket.
Why are the car keys in the bed, YouTube?
They were in my pocket.
YouTube! Car keys should not live in a bed. There's a place, right, when you come inside my house where you put the car keys, but no. No, YouTube.
The car keys are in the bed.
The car keys are in the bed.
Yep. I didn't think he would need them, so I was going to put them there later. All right. Well, the car keys were in the bed. But I guess we'll go to the next clip. But the way that Star Citizen always existed was there was always safe places, and there was always there was a lot of instancing. There was a lot of cutscenes. That was the original pitch of the game. All right, so we have the rebuttal. I'm going to grab it in a very weird and awkward way.
The idea of it's either a PvE game that does this or it's a PvP game that allows for this. I know I have full confidence that you, Yogi, have the skill set, knowledge, and temperament to actually get the game to the right place. But I think the idea of...
Brother, what?
It's either a PvE game that does this or it's a PvP game that allows for this. I know I have full confidence that you, Yogi, have the skill set, knowledge, and temperament to actually get the game to the right place. But I think in a weird kind of way, the conceptualization of it's either this or that is wrong. Because if you have a PvE game that allows for PvP, the PvP balance and content will suffer in some way. And vice versa, if you do strictly PvP, the PvE content will suffer in some way. So the idea should be out the door, and it should be much more based on if you have a game that's designed from the ground up that is making sense for PvP, PvE, You can take games like Star Wars Squadrons, which is strictly PvP, but yet the single player campaign is accessible to many people. I've only heard really positive reviews on people just playing the campaign side of it and being like, this is great. But that entire the entire system was based around great PvP gameplay that also ends up being great PvE gameplay. So, when we talk about master modes and the tuning and the ships, speeds, weapons, this, that, and the other, a great PvP experience, ironically enough, will also equate to a great PvE experience, in my opinion, because we've seen that happen.
I mean, listen, Star Wars Squadron, dead game because EA killed it in a lot of ways. Everything that he showed me in terms of like the tweaks that he would like to make to Star Citizen based off of Star Wars Squadrons, I think were all generally decent ideas, especially the pip thing. Like the pip thing is really something that resonated with me with the podcast. And what he's talking about is there are no pips in Star Wars Squadrons. Like the way they tuned the weapons was that you would shoot towards the ship that you were aiming at. There was a little aim assist, but for the most part, you were like judging your shots, and there was some skill involved, but it wasn't insane, and you weren't hyper focused on a little circle that you were trying to aim for. You were focused on the cool looking ship that you were attacking. I love that idea, but the fact that he brings up Star Wars Squadrons a lot, I think, is going to probably make other people be like, all right, dude, chill out with this dead game, nobody cares kind of thing. I don't necessarily agree with that sentiment. Like, yes, it's a dead game. Maybe it doesn't apply every aspect of it to an MMO, but the way he's made some arguments for me is he's shown some good experiences from Star Wars Squadrons that could be good experiences in Star Citizen, right? It doesn't mean make Star Wars Squadrons, right?
Happen time and time again. And we have real examples of games like EVE Online, which are mostly PvE with tons of PvP. And, to me, it's just, I feel like in a certain kind of way, like you've been hamstrung, I guess, in a weird kind of way, because they're like, we want the game to be PvE. I agree. We got to bring the skill level down in a sense so that people can access it, but without sacrificing that zone where it really matters, because that's what's going to keep people locked in for that long-term kind of gameplay.
Yeah, but people aren't going to be locked in to like it's almost under the assumption here that the game only survives if the PvP community survives. And in a lot of ways he's right. But I think he's also, like, the way he's framing it there is that the entire game is everybody is going to have to PvP for the game to survive, almost. It's sort of what it sounded like there. But in the end, that's not the case at all. The game will survive if it has a large casual audience that, pops in the game and plays, whether they PvP or not. We don't, again, it is, how do you, as Yogi, or how do us and Avenger and Tomato as backers even have this conversation when nobody knows what the end game is? Nobody knows what the end goals are. Nobody knows what PvE elements we're even working towards. Nobody even knows what PvP things we're going to fight for. Right? So it's kind of hard. But yeah, this one's kind of crazy.
Okay, so I understand the worries there, but the whole tuning stuff that we did in 3.2.2.1, for example, right? This was all based around PvP. The reason, because I do agree, like, if you have a good PvP experience first, it is easier. Like, PvE is always easier than PvP in terms of balance, because...
Interesting response. Okay, cool.
If there's something in PvE and, I don't know, you fight alone against Hammer, some designers might say, okay, you're in a Gladius and you're fighting 5 Hammerheads. That's not a problem that's really hard to solve, right? Like, we can use damage modifiers, we can just make accidentally, like, the ships running into each other to make it easy and so on. So I do agree, right? That is easier. But when I said we're doing a PvE game that allows PvP, I don't necessarily, like, there's still a couple of decisions in there that we would simply not do otherwise. As I said, like, gimbals is one thing, right? Because right now we have this thing that we have gimbals, and we're not really using it anymore in fighters, for example, to automatically track the target and hit something. Where like when you
That was
can
always a bad
manually
idea.
gimbal them if you want to, but you have this lower fire rate. You can use a precision targeting mode, which is basically not very useful in dogfighting because you'll never be so close and so stable on target that the auto gimbaling will actually make the enemies hit.
That's a big one here too. That was something we discussed, and I think I'm very surprised that he's not rebuttaling this yet. I'm sure he will, because that was a big point of contention when we talked to him on Sunday, was that precision targeting is going to screw everything up because they allowed the way the guns work is you're able to fire from much further away. So if you're able to do that with precision targeting as well, it's really concerning. And I would say I agree, but Yogi's saying the opposite. But what happens when we get it in our hands is sometimes we put the square peg through the round hole, right?
I forgot where I was going with this
point. I think that's what's happening.
I'll find it in a sec. But overall, when I talked about we're doing PvE now and later PvP, don't understand this as a general, we're making a pure PvE game. No, the game itself, the mechanics, the combat dynamics and so on, they need to work in a systemic way, right? We know what the hammerhead should be good and bad at. We know what the medium and heavy fighters should be good and bad at, or we're trying at least to. I mean, some stuff just naturally evolves, right? But we roughly know what our goal times are. But when I talk about putting focus on PvP, on PvE, so specifically in this case, that means the 1v1s, for example, right? We simply currently do not have time to invest a lot of time, or basically it's time and money, because like my work time is basically money, right? Mm-hmm. We cannot invest a lot currently in the 1v1s. If I know that the majority of the combat players are not PvP players at the moment. So this is why we're focusing on other things. If we had actually the dominant goal to make PvP good right now, we would invest in Jerk. We would invest in creating different or trying out different models. I mean, you yourself, you had your big proponent of like make it faster, right? I don't necessarily agree with this because. But it doesn't mean that the overall thing you want to achieve, meaning probably something like I want to be evasive, right? In a light fighter, this can also be achieved in other ways. But currently, we don't have the time to actually deep dive into these problems. Will it happen? I'm pretty sure it will. Like,
okay, but not guaranteeing it will. So that's kind of scary. But that's pretty cool. The way. A very like political, but very, very to the point, and like I think it was a calming answer, right? And to just say PvP isn't a priority right now, it's gonna hurt for PvPers. I think pirates, it's gonna be horrible this patch. Yeah, he's always out of time. Yeah, I've noticed that. Time has very much been a pain point for them. He did say 1v1s, and they do think that they're very happy with. They think that they're very happy with the group combat. I think Avenger's shown some things about the group combat that aren't good. I think. Over time, people will find more things about the group combat that aren't good as the PvPers figure out all the little quirks, right? But I think that's a probably good place to cut that clip. The guys who did post the clip, did I bleed into another one? I believe I did. I'll take a quick look, but I do believe I bled into another clip or two. The next clip is titled "Get an Escort." Okay, maybe not. So the title of the clips all seem to be new stuff. So that was pretty good. I do have a, if Star Citizen was a pure PvP game, it's not. I think we've addressed that. But nice. All right, so we do have some other stuff that we can jump into next. This next one is titled Get an Escort.
Maybe we also need to educate players just to not go alone or something like that.
A question here regarding time to
Get
kill.
an escort.
Yeah, get an escort. Really?
Don't get me started.
Ask somebody. Ask somebody.
I've been literally
20 credits. And then...
I'm like, guys, just hire a scout. Like, just
Hey.
Yeah, but that's, I mean, even coming from Yogi, I'm not surprised because you're so focused on the combat and not knowing that there's nothing. There's no game to escort. There's no game, guys. There's no game, and players are not willing to do any escorting or anything, or hire escorts because there's no point, right? And because the game is so open still, it's a situation where not true. It absolutely is true. So I'm sorry, but if you don't feel that way, so like if you're comfortable getting an escort, that doesn't make it not true for the majority of players. Go look at Spectrum, go look at Reddit, go look at the game. Everybody is flying alone in a large ship, okay? Not only should you get an escort, but you should maybe have somebody manning your turrets, especially coming up in the future patches, right? Because turrets will be a lot more powerful or a lot better, right? You absolutely should, but the game, the underlying game, does not support the reason for hiring a escort. If you are hiring an escort, you are doing it because you are RPing, right? Not yet. Exactly. Not yet. Because the game is dead if they don't make an underlying game where if I lose this thing, it will suck. Right now, if I lose this thing, I hate the person who bothered me and cost me time to have to go and wait for my ship to claim, to go through 15 elevators, fly down to a planet's surface and buy more cargo and do it again. But again, all you're doing it for is to watch your number go up on your Mobiglass. There's no underlying progression systems or real video game mechanics. And if you want to make the argument that buying ships is a progression system, you are absolutely right and wrong. The reason I think you're right is that is a money sink. That is a thing that you can progress to, especially if you don't have a salvage ship or a mining ship that creates a vastly different experience. But a majority of the ships you buy are either a single-seater ship that flies around and has guns, or a multi-crew ship that flies around and has turrets, right? Very few of them provide incredibly unique experiences and open up a new avenue in the game for you. So there's very few avenues where you would find that progression. So without proper gold sinks, without proper progression, nobody is ever going to hire an escort. And there's no easy way to do it in the game, right? So the hire an escort thing is, I'm sorry, just silly. All right, next clip is titled, "You Can't Just Look at the High-Skilled PvP Players." And you're damn right, but I don't think Avenger ever said that. A lot of people put words in his mouth and said that he said, only listen to the PvPers. He never said that. He said, listen to the PvPers. Because I think to him, it feels like they're being ignored, and to some extent they are, because they're focusing mostly on the PvE experience. Yogi said it, right? But it doesn't mean that they're not listening to them, or it doesn't mean that they're not ignoring them or whatever, right? So let's see this,
because that's obviously going to dramatically change into the 30 seconds plus if I'm avoiding fire, if I'm doing it right, if I'm on him, if I'm chasing him. I'm not going to have guns on the whole time. To me, that you're fighting for that spot to get the 2 second time. You know?
But honestly, it's going to be like that. That is something I cannot really answer right now. So this is something where we need player testing, because we cannot just like take a look at like, high skilled PvP players. We have to take a look how it feels for the rest of the game. If having a low TTK means that less people venture into, let's say, less regulated systems and avoid PvP. So let's assume we don't have any players in Pyro because of that. We might backtrack a little bit from that, right? But honestly, like, we'll see. We could also add like variations where we basically just say, hey, player versus player, or if you are a player and the other guy you're shooting at is a player, damage times 3. We can do that, right?
Because that's obviously going to dramatically.
Okay. Yeah, I guess I don't really have much to add to that one. I do see something in chat about the last thing we talked about, and I have to respond to this because again, it's you're in your little box and you're not thinking about the entire game. SaltEMike, you're contradicting yourself. You say there's no reason to hire escorts, but the reason to do industrial is to make the number go up. Hiring escorts decreases your chance of the numbers going down. My org and I always run with escorts, and we aren't RPing, and we don't lose cargo. We're just okay with our numbers going up slower. Most traders aren't. Okay, I guess in the end, the whole thing is numbers go up. But what I'm saying is there's nothing to use those numbers to buy something of value that opens up experiences and making the game better. Okay, so you're missing the whole plot, and you're only thinking about what you and your org friends do, man. And like, mad respect to you, okay? And I hope you're having so much fun in the game, and I have no disrespect towards you whatsoever. But there's no game, and the numbers going up don't matter, right? That's the problem here, is the numbers going up do not matter. I hate the idea of damage difference between NPCs and players. He literally just said they can't do that. I don't care. There's no point. I enjoy playing the game. Great. But I'm speaking from my perspective, and just because your perspective is different doesn't make it right, and doesn't make mine right. We can both enjoy the game in different ways. I need certain things to enjoy the game, and I'm sorry, but I think I'm more in the majority than the very small amount of players that are playing the game today. Okay? So I think there's, out of the millions of backers, what percentage of those are actually playing the game today? Come on. Next thing is snub fighters should not compete with combat fighters.
Are like, for me, a snub fighter should not necessarily compete with, in terms of combat effectiveness, with like an equally, or with an archetype of a higher category. Like, I don't think a snub fighter like the Fury should have the same combat effectiveness as a Gladius, for example, right?
But 3 maybe.
And they are naturally limited anyways, because snub fighters, for example, have a smaller weapon capacitor, so they cannot. So while even like the Fury has like 4 size 2s on gimbal, I'm not sure if they're so probably going to get gimbals anyways, right? But that ship will not be able to put out the same DPS, and they're flaky. Like, when they're getting hit, they're down pretty much. So the question of what kind of role they fill is, I mean, they're parasite ships mostly, right? They're not meant to be like very, very durable. And like, I'm not sure if that answers the question, but I don't know. Like, I mean, does the P-72 count as a snub fighter? It's basically a super small racer, right? So I mean,
the only actual snub fighter we have is technically the Fury.
Yes.
Because the Merlin, I mean, we've talked about the Merlin, the poor thing. I mean, we need to get it nose redesigned, and we need to get a weapon upgrade, because the poor thing is just, very undergunned.
But then, right, like I would see them as like similar to, like, maybe similar to a scenario where you have like where I said you have to overlap.
Is Tomato going to talk during this? No, I'm just kidding. Obviously, we clipped out the parts where only they talk, but
The defensive, the Fury or the P-52 or something like, they are.
85X isn't a snub fighter, I don't think. Well, it's definitely not a fighter, but 85X has been, like, talk about one of the most ignored ships and pointless and most useless ships in the game is the 85X.
Ships, so you can use them for something. I don't know.
I know Tomato was a good host. He's the best podcast, Star Citizen podcast there is.
Necessarily expect a Fury on its own to take down a turret or something like that, right? But in the numbers, it will still help, right? I also don't expect the Fury to necessarily win a duel against the Gladius. I would pretty sure, like in most cases, the Fury would actually die, unless like the pilot is so good that it's really not getting any hits on it and so on, right? But yeah, it's
But in master modes, that's unlikely.
like in terms of effectiveness and everything, I don't think the snubs should outperform ships of a bigger size. They're just like they're parasite fighters or parasite ships.
So then why would I ever use a Fury? Like, it's an honest question. I mean,
it is another ship. It is another ship, right? Like if you're in a situation, let's say you're manning the let's say a Fury or a P-52 or something like that. Like there's one target more in the space that other players have to worry about. So that is where I see that. And like even like if you have 10 Furies of them, fine, they can still do some damage if they can get out of the.
Yeah, like I just can't. The big thing about the PvPers right now, and especially Avenger, right? Avenger does a lot of training with this guys, and it's a lot of like scenarios that are put together and not organically happening in the game, right? And I can just see a C2 opening, or I mean, have you guys seen the Idris? How many 85 or how many Furies can fit in the Idris, right? I can just see the gates opening of the Idris and like 100 of them coming out, right? And then it just being chaos. So I think there's a reason for it, but we don't know the reasons. We can't feel that reason yet because these things aren't easy to do in the game now, or easy. It will always be a thing that some YouTuber did for a video, not because it made sense, right?
Anger without breaking anything, that is, right? But you understand what I mean, right?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that addresses that end of it. That's fun though. It sounds like they have in the mind everything is okay. What's in the game doesn't necessarily equate to that because they seem to be more focused on the PvE end, or sometimes you just get it wrong. I mean, they've gotten it wrong plenty of times, right? Next one, why use a Fury? We just saw that. I think these two we've already addressed. I'm going to just double check. Yeah, we did that. PvP versus PvE goals is the next clip. I do think we also watched this.
It's not the overarching goal to make a perfect PvP game. Like it's like Star Citizen is a PvE game that allows PvP.
Yes, okay, we did see that, but we can reiterate on that. Is they're coming at it from Star Citizen is a PvE game that allows PvP. Plans on balancing shields is next.
Like the different shields that we have, they're gonna have like values which make them more or less resistance against certain against the alpha damage that comes through. For example, the typical problem that is often quoted to me: "Oh wait, I'm sitting in my Avenger, in my Gladius. I have laser repeaters. Now I have a range of 4 kilometers. Like they have no damage fall off and so on. So I can pepper a constellation from miles away and keep the shield in regen. That's specific."
All right, and that's a big point of contention that Avenger has with the fighter versus big ship issue. So let's see how he addresses it. This is a big thing.
Typically won't happen in the future, right? If you pepper a constellation or any other size shield with a ship with size 3 shield generators, then the shield generators will basically not necessarily shrug it off, but they will not go into this high regen delay. So the amount of delay that you get on impacting shields and so on will be dependent on the alpha damage that comes in. So that gets a little bit around that,
That's
right?
a huge
because
change.
This has nothing directly to do with the gunnery system, but it kind of has because it has to do with damage application. But still, sorry.
So
Yeah, we need to have him respond here because
just real quick, just so I can understand it. So how is that problem going to get fixed? Because that's sometimes what I sit around and think about. It's like, okay, so did you see the Hammerhead video I put out? I know we talked about it in DM chat, and I remember again, other CIG devs have commented on this saying, well, this will be fixed because the armor system will come in, and my whole thing has always been like it's a geometric problem rather than like an armor problem, right? So yeah, you can put shield regen to 1,000,000. The limiting factor for me is now I just need to bring a few more fighters, because if I can hit you and you can't hit me, then it's a moot point whether you have 1,000,000 points of armor or not.
And the thing is, the thing that he showed in the video was that it wasn't fun for anybody. It wasn't fun for the people doing the killing, and it wasn't fun for the people in the Hammerhead that couldn't hit the other guys from far away. So I'm very curious what Yogi's going to say.
That situation, how are we going to fix that? Like, how are you going to approach that problem is the question.
I just explained it. Like, the thing is, like,
okay,
like the thing that I want to achieve in the gunnery system is mostly that I want the choice of weapons that you bring with you to matter. Like, the proper way to bring down a big hammerhead is not to attack it with fighters. If you bring fighters, you have to bring a lot of them, but this will not be like the way where I would like this to be is that the numbers actually matter, right? Like, at the moment, if you go with one constellation or one hammerhead against a single fighter, and the single fighter actually gets in range of the hammerhead, I want that fighter to die, like, very, very quickly. So it's just not a valid target. It's like similar.
Yes, but again, he's not addressing that happens now. They have achieved that. So yes, he's saying things that make sense, but he's not answering the problem. As far as I'm aware, like, correct me if I'm wrong, he's saying if they're in weapon range of the Hammerhead, he will, then we'll let him cook. Okay.
With, like, air defense turrets or something like that. If you go into an area that is bespoke created for killing killing fighters, the fighters should suffer. And this is also the direction I got from above, by the way, right? Like, we want ships, like large ships and capital ships, we want these things to be actual problems that players have to solve. But there's not like a one-to-one relationship there, right? If you want to bring down a hammerhead, the choices that I would like to see is, like, let's ignore the current balance and even the current 3-2-1 state, right?
Okay.
You need to overwhelm the defenses, not necessarily by firing at it, but just to give turrets a harder target and allowing your other fighters to get close enough so that they can use anti-meteorite cannons, which is basically our version of, like, low velocity, high punch in ballistics, so that you can actually punch through the hull and actually damage those turrets. So I mean, this is why we also showed that case on the CitizenCon demo, right? Like, because it's the use case which we're trying to go for, so that you basically have to bring lots of ships with properly equipped, and you have to get into the effective fire range of the turrets of the Hammerhead to actually make damage.
See, there it is.
Okay, I need to hear what he just said again. Because right now, because again, that's why Avenger pointed, because right now you can damage the ship without being in its effective fire range. And that's what he wants them to fix. So I want to hear what Yogi says again.
Basically our version of, like, low velocity, high punch in ballistics, so that you can actually punch through the hull and actually damage those turrets. So
which, again, why and Avenger is not happy with the comments about Maelstrom, but doesn't Maelstrom create the situation where you have to bring the anti-material guns that are shorter range, that are able to damage through the shields in the ship? Like, he got very, like, aggressive towards me on the podcast too about this, and that was the point that I was trying to make, is, like, all of those things make sense then if the guns that you're using that are for fighters are not being used against the ship, but the ones that are going to do well against their Maelstrom armor will force you into that weapons range. That's his job, is to balance the game that way, which they currently have not done a good enough job of yet.
I mean, this is why we also showed that case on the CitizenCon demo, right?
Yeah,
like,
we'll let him go, and I want to see what Avenger says as well after.
So that you basically have to bring lots of ships with properly equipped, and you have to get into the effective fire range of the turrets of the hammerhead to actually make damage.
See, there it is. Get into the effective fire range of the turrets, right? Because how it's always been is this issue where even if my guns are smaller, again, it's the whole if I can hit you, you can't hit me. So basically, you're going to get it to a place, hopefully, or tune it so that, I think the answer for fighters is to just reduce the weapon range so that they have to get within effective range of a hammerhead to engage.
It's what he's saying, though. He's just saying that you have to bring a different weapon. And here's what it comes down to. It might just be a philosophy thing between Yogi and Avenger. And this is a question that, maybe Avenger sees this, maybe he doesn't, but I'll ask him in DMs. Do you want your Gladius to be able to do both? Is that your issue with all this, right? Because if that's the case, then that's not the direction that they're going in, right? It comes down to this. Are you bringing your this is what Yogi seems to want versus what Avenger is seeming to want. Do you want your Gladius to be able to dogfight and kill hammerheads? Or do you want your Gladius to dogfight or kill hammerheads? You can make that choice when you leave the hangar or when you leave the Idris or whenever you go out into the fight, right? That's a good response as well. Nobody wants the Gladius to be able to contribute. Okay. I think that's kind of fair, but I think what Yogi's saying is the way they would contribute is to be to distract the turrets so the ships that can get in and do the damage would be that. Whether you accept that as an answer or not, I can respect either way. Because, drawing fire is scary, especially in this case, right? Where the if you're in the effective range, you die, being the response from them, right? So it's not like you can distract turret fire. If you're in their effective range, you die. So they're contradicting themselves there a little bit, right? There has to be some thought there, I think, more than what Yogi just said. But very interesting, and I do like the idea of I tune my ship to dogfight or I tune my ship to blow up a hammerhead. I think I can get behind that versus the light fighter can do everything kind of situation, which is what we have now, and that's why everybody flies them and not anything else, right? But then it also comes down to, okay, well, maybe that's where medium fighters find their role, right? But this is interesting. I want to keep hearing what they say on this one.
Yeah, maybe. I feel like probably that would the more interesting conversation. Feel a lot better because
you're basing your experience currently on 3221, right?
Right, correct.
Okay, so just to be clear on that, but we never said it anywhere, right? But the current weapon tuning we have in 3221 is not necessarily the one that you see later. In fact, we only added the hammerhead in there and the constellation and the P52, I think.
P52, yeah.
Just to basically, it was a try. Let's throw it in and see what happens. I absolutely expected that the peppering problem, for example, will not go away, right? Because a couple of other changes are missing. Concerning the weapon ranges, so the reason why I am a little bit resistant to decrease them. So right now, I will agree the weapon range is a little bit too high, especially on some ballistics, right? To fire them, and you see the trail just goes on forever, and you're like, okay, that was 7 seconds. What the hell? It's still there, right? So I do agree. Like we bring them down. We also have the option to add a weapon fall off so that we can encourage fighters to get closer, right?
Oh, damage
what
fall
we
off.
also have in the new gunnery system, which is not enabled, or that part at least is not enabled in 3221. We can actually make.
He's fully aware. I love this so much. There have been very few situations where the developers who actually make the content are not fully aware. I think one of the only times that they were not aware was the mining ISC, where Torsten came on screen and said mining was too easy. That was the only time that I've ever seen a developer not be aware of the feature that they were working on. And Torsten is clearly very aware of how mining works and everything like that now. At that time, I don't know if he had just started working at the company or not at that point, but that was the first time we ever saw him, right? So it's possible he had been there for a little while, possibly had been there for a long time. I don't know. But that video, I came out and was like, these guys are clueless. And to be honest, I think that they were at that moment. They didn't realize the effect that the changes they were making actually have. It is almost always the case that the guys who are working on this stuff, no matter what aspects of the game, including the FPS stuff that a lot of people have contention with, are aware of all of the issues, but are unable to do anything about them because they have to get a patch out for a ship sale or something like that. I think a lot of people get mad when I make these comments, but just look at the timing of things. One of the most healthy things you could possibly hear was Jared on SCL this week say, this patch is so big, it's not coming. Our normal cadence of releasing a patch is not going to happen. That is so healthy to hear, because if it bleeds into May, it will release no matter what, because IAE is in May. Right? And that's the problem that we've had all the time is IAE and Invictus are the two biggest pain points of the game, because they have to release at a certain, whatever, the big ship sale. It doesn't matter what it is. Those have to release on time. And those are the only ones where, and we as players have suffered having worse systems in the game or broken ones because the developers did not have time to finish the stuff that they wanted to finish for those patches.
Just because a weapon is mounted on a turret, make the weapon stronger. It's actually based on the gimbal.
CIG always thinks in fully crewed ships, not soloing a multi-crew ship. Do you think that's a bad thing or a good thing? I think that that's a good thing, because they're thinking long-term the game actually being played. Okay, cool. Yeah, that for me, that's obviously a good thing, right? Where the current player is only thinking about the current situation, which a majority of the time they're soloing
mode itself.
Ships.
So when you because the new gimbal mode system is internally it has so the things like fixed and auto and manual and all that, these are all internal gimbal modes, but we now have separate gimbal modes for remote turrets as well and for manned turrets. So we can just make weapons which are mounted on turrets just bigger. We can just up the lifetime. We can make their projectiles faster.
Do we have lore for that?
That all works. Sorry?
So
this is another thing that Avenger was yelling. There was one part of the podcast where Avenger was really passionate, and I could not get a word in. And I was trying to say this is tech that they've talked about, that they, even though you have a size 7 gun on a certain ship, you can have that act in a way that forces them into that firing range. And that was the only time where things got a little bit heated. And I didn't take it personally at all, just so you know. I some people made comments were you mad when he did it? No. And again, he's passionate, and that's it. I wasn't mad at all. But that was the one part where I was trying to get this point that Yogi's saying out, and I just couldn't get it.
Changing the ratio between...
I said, do we have lore for that?
So the thing with lore is the thing with lore is if we change something and we need lore to explain that, they will find a way.
They'll figure it out. Yeah.
Right now we're not basing the gameplay on the lore. I mean, sometimes maybe yes, but it needs to it needs to fit in the whole systemic solution of flight and combat, right? So and you can easily explain it. You could say, hey, this is a dedicated turret. It has some really cool high pressure capacitors just that flop the thing out faster. So I mean, we can make it up we can make it up whatever we want. We can also
Good
just create
old-
variations of these weapons, which we can attach to turrets if we want to, right? So
Some good old
it's up to us.
nanotechnology.
Okay, so
It's nanotechnology, yeah.
Yeah.
So it sounds like, to me, and I agree with this, and you know, a lot of us in the PvP space have kind of felt the same way. It's like you need to force the nature of trade combat in a sense that if I'm in a turret, I'm going to have range control issues on you, because if you're in a fighter moving around me, right?
Yeah.
So we need to bring it to a place where each party is now at risk of engaging each other, right?
I would say actually the turrets should almost always outrange any kind of like fighters that are coming in.
Right, they should outrange it. So the only way to get away from the turret is to either get right up on it and make it harder for the turret to track you at close range because you're creating too many deflection angles, or because it
really close, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean very close, which is good. I mean, you want that kind of, you want it up in your face, right?
You can see their eyes.
But are you able to do that in master modes? Right? That's really interesting. Because he said you have to get really, really close. And again, I can only base my opinion based off of 322.1. The answer is yes, actually. Yes, kind of. I feel like we always ended up winning out. And no chance in Atmo. I'm just thinking of my experiences so far, and there was a few times where like absolutely dumpstered people. But when I was going against like Shadow Moses guys and some like good pilots, there were times where it was very hard to track them. But again, that is something that can be tuned and balanced in a way that they can make it work eventually. It might not work now, but as long as it's what they want and they're capable of working there over time, then I'm okay with it. But yeah, interesting.
Now, I agree with this, and I've been arguing for this. It's like Hammerhead should have higher velocity projectiles. I think some of the SIG guys tried it out on the Idris when you guys were doing the event. They increased the projectile
The Idris has custom.
the
The Idris has just custom weaponry. It's I think the weapons are a little bit faster, but these are at the moment it uses custom weapon records. I would like to go into.
Well, thank you. You can circle a hammerhead with a gladius in master modes, and turrets can barely hit you. If the hammerhead boosts away, it makes it harder. Okay.
Be in a situation where that is not necessary. We actually have the proper weapons on there and not just like buffed weapons. But I mean, yeah, it's the different.
Yeah, because you could tie it into power plant, right? You have a bigger ship, bigger power plant,
yeah,
more
sure.
power to your weapons, blah blah blah, right?
Yeah.
But the idea is the ratio is what's in question here. So you're going to adjust it. So the ratio means that if I'm in a fighter and I'm engaging and I'm hitting you, then you can also hit me, right? Because we got to get away from this idea of I can hit you indefinitely forever and you can never hit me. And that's how we get the whole hammerhead phenomenon of forever kiting and blah blah blah. And,
yeah, but the other things which I mentioned before, they're also in addition to that, right? Like if you just have a couple of fighters, especially with anti-fighter weapons, the hammerhead will say, oh, well, yeah. I mean, it's like similar if you
Yeah, and the key there is especially with anti-fighter weapons, it will shrug you off. And that is the shield tech and in combination with the maelstrom tech that they want to do. Whatever. I don't like using the word tech, but like a change to the way shields work, and then the maelstrom thing, right? That's what should do that. And I got a lot of pushback about that when I brought that up. But
if you have, I don't know, M16,
it makes
you
sense
go to an
me.
Abrams tank and you shoot at it. The Abrams is like,
What are you doing?
okay,
it's like, bro,
right? Yeah, it's similar. Like a good case, and like from flight sims, like DCS, you can attack a tank with your 20mm and a Hornet. With a tank, no, right? You can outrange it. I mean, the tank will probably not hit back because it doesn't have any effective weaponry, but sometimes that kind of stuff happens if you have like, an unequal set of like options.
Look, we agree on this. Like I'm 100%. I totally think it's the smart thing to do.
Yeah, they just give us a broken master modes experience or an incomplete one to base our opinions off of, and do not have these conversations with the community to calm the issues down. You have the Jared asking the questions who doesn't know the problems, and you have ISC, which is incredibly curated. And that creates more questions than you do answers, right? And like, again, not hating on Jared, but Jared doesn't play the game like Avenger 1 does to find all these problems, right? So allowing, like, the healthiest thing they've ever did, whether they allowed a Yogi on this podcast or not, was allow him to address the problems and have a conversation with somebody who is concerned about the direction of the game and calming those issues down, right? What was the most successful conversation on master modes by a CIG dev in the last 4 years? This. Nothing official from CIG was as healthy as this conversation.
Issue has to be adjusted, and then obviously fighters that are I don't know why people have put me in this box saying like A1 wants light fighter meta to come back and blah blah blah. It's
well, because you want the light fighter to be able to contribute to killing the hammerhead, and it's assuming that you want to be able to do both. I think that's what people are putting him in the box. Is I'm still under the assumption, based off of his arguments, that he wants to be able to do both. And Yogi is very much saying you're never going to be able to do both. You're a dogfighter or you're an anti-material ship fighter, I guess.
I've been always fighting for
choose.
this. You know what I mean? I agree with this. Like, you have an ecosystem, right? Ships engage each other. Like, if I'm going to take down a hammerhead, I should genuinely, without memeing around, right, be like, okay, we need 2 Ares. We need some ships designed to kill bigger stuff. Otherwise, what's the point of an Ares? You know?
Yeah.
You know. So, I know for me, I don't want to live in a future where I can take out 4 Buccaneers and run around and kill basically everything in the game, and it's just variations on how long it takes me to kill them.
Okay. I mean, well, there's your answer there.
You know, I want there to be a place where fighters have a role. It's like, you know, but I also think if you knock the shields down, you know, on these bigger ships and you're going in for runs, I still want to contribute to the fight, you know, and I know you were talking about precision mode and whatnot.
See, and I think that's where maybe he has a good argument. And let me know, like, there's some combat pilots in the chat. Let me know what you guys think. Should a light fighter contribute to the fight more than just being a distraction or an annoyance? He might have a point here, right? Can I help take the shields down a little bit? Can I contribute in some way, even though it's not the most effective? And I think that's a good question, and I'm very curious what he's going to say.
You know, going in and picking the turrets off manually, right? So if I'm a fighter, I'm not going to do a lot of hull damage, but I can come in there and knock out its starboard turrets or whatever, right? Make it easier.
Just your presence there can also make a difference, right?
See, he keeps bringing that up, just your presence there. I don't like that as the response, personally. I would like to contribute in an ineffective way, very ineffective way, but contribute, right? Being able to take out the turrets is a very effective way, because it essentially ends the ship, so maybe that's not the best thing. Not moral support or participation trophy, guys. Think how can I, like, you know, make an analogy or something that makes sense from another game. I'm not entirely sure, but if you could participate in helping take down the shields, maybe it's not the most effective way to do it, but it can do it. Could be a thing, right? But maybe it won't be able to get through the hull, right? Just some part of the fight towards that, but it's not the entire piece of the puzzle where if you bring 50 Gladiuses, you still, you know, are going to have a very, very difficult or impossible time. 50 Gladiuses with anti-fighter weapons, maybe you're not able to do it, right? But to contribute to that part of the fight, I think is also an important thing, because what Avenger is saying is that the game will get very boring if I only am doing one thing. Because what happens when I've killed all the fighters and the hammerhead's left? Do I just sit from a distance and watch, right? Do I fly around and put myself at risk to die in an incredible risk to die in a permadeath game? Board it, it's still flying, it's still running, right? So, you know, that's the interesting part of Avengers argument that I sort of agree with is maybe allow it to contribute a little bit, but not be a part of the taking down of these large ships, but not the answer, right? A potential part of the answer, but there's more dedicated and better solutions to that. But I think they're kind of running around in this one, and yeah, that's everything. I have all the clips that we were going to watch. Very interesting. Like I said earlier, that was the best conversation around master modes that has ever been communicated from CIG, period. And it had to come on Space Tomatoes podcast. And that is, I hope something that they learn a little bit here is that for situations where you have people that are, experts in the field of that thing, you get the best of both worlds in this scenario. Who here considers themselves an expert combat pilot? I would say there's probably 5 to 10 in the chat. There are 910 people here right now. Okay? Right? But if you're not an expert pilot, you probably got just as much valuable information out of this conversation with the expert pilot, because the way he answered them was saying it will be fun for you, the expert pilot. That's the goal here. But it's also going to work for you, the regular player, right? And to anybody who was like, hey, like very angry about Avengers saying like they need to talk to us, the combat pilots, the experts, and gave him a lot of shit for that. This is why that's not necessarily a bad problem. Is Avenger can say, here are my concerns. Bang, put them on the table. And Yogi, who's the actual expert, right? Because he's the one who's making the thing and knows every in and out and should be able to respond to any concerns, is able to, all while calming down or, just laying it out there, hey, this is how it is for the PvP experts, right? And the people who have, figured this thing in and out in a lot of ways, and exposed the problems of it and exposed concerns, are able to have those concerns calm down, or the realization that it's going to take some time, or any of the other things that have happened on the podcast that he says. The PvP player or the expert player is able to get his things answered for once, because it felt like they were being ignored, because Yogi basically said, I was focusing on the PvE stuff mostly, because that's where we're starting with things. He's able to get those concerns calmed, all while the PvE, the more casual player, the one who's not sitting in Arena Commander 40 hours a day, practicing and getting as good as they possibly can, excited that they're cared for as well, right? And that's what happens when you have somebody who knows what they're talking about from a backer standpoint and a player standpoint, having a conversation with the developer who has all the answers for them. I've had these conversations in DMs with developers on things that I have issues with, and I've never come out of that conversation more upset. I've always come out of those conversations understanding of the situation, right? And we need more of that. And again, I spoke earlier, this isn't me advocating to make my content better and have more people come on my podcast or anything like that, because I think it's a lose-lose for me and in my situation. But so I don't think I would ever have a developer on anyway. But I do think that this was really, really healthy and the most healthy conversation around Master Mode. So thank you to whoever had part in this, whether it was CIG allowing it, Tomato putting it together, Avenger asking, not being afraid to ask the questions that are frustrating him. That was a great thing to watch, and I feel better about everything after watching that. I don't feel like, I feel like I could trust them. Remember, I said I don't know if I can trust them. I feel like I can trust them.